Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. This video is going to be showing you guys, mostly time-lapse, the full build of this very ultra modern designed garden house. So we've got some really good features in this garden house. We're going to have underfloor heating. We're going to have a shower in there with a toilet and sink. We're also going to have a vortex pump, which takes care of situations where you may not have sewerage lines at the back of the garden. This takes care of that. We're going to have air conditioning in this as well. We're going to have some metal cladding, some copper elements in the building externally. Just some really nice features in this. So we're starting off with breaking ground. So this is actually day 2. Day 1, we came in, we had a massive concrete slab at the back because there was no shed there. We broke that with the breaker and cleared that a day before. Then we come in today with the digger and we're digging the trenches for the foundation, and the oversight. So what that means is we dig sort of like a perimeter around the outline of where the walls are going to be. You guys can see sort of the shape. There's a lot of little sort of angles and so on in this, and this is what we're doing here. So we've pretty much dug down to depth now, and we're just sort of clearing off the last few little bits of debris by hand, just trying to clean as much as possible. You want to get as much loose dirt out of there as much as possible. And so we're going straight concrete in here. So this is the UK, and I know we get questioned a lot of times about steel work into footings like rebar and so on, which is more common in some countries, but in the UK it's not very common. Although you see we've got some rebar here where we're actually using this rebar for the old school method of leveling the foundation. So what we do is we cut them to lengths and we basically nail them in the ground. And you can see that I'm just using a level to sort of transfer the measurement of, or the height of, one steel piece of rebar to the next. And then I basically work my way all the way around. And if I get it all right, they should all line up by the time I make the entire square. So we've done that now, and we're down to concrete pour. So this is right at the back of a garden. There's no access to get the truck at the back of the building, and also this was a fully brand new renovated house, so we didn't want to be getting wheelbarrows of concrete running through the house. So much easier to just get a pump in, and it's a 20-minute job. Guys can pump the concrete all the way out for us, and as you guys can see, we've done that. Concrete dries really quick. Within a day or two you can start blocking up. So what we're using here below ground is what we call trench blocks. So these are 300mm wide blocks. They're thermal blocks. They are designed to go below sort of ground, and that's what we're using here to sort of get the outline of the foundations. And everything above ground we want to be normally seen. We'll use different blocks. Sometimes we use bricks, sometimes we use blocks. This building is going to be cladded, so we're just doing it in concrete blocks because it's all going to be covered anyway, so it doesn't need to be any type of finished block or finished brickwork. It will be basically weatherproofed with an external cladding. So if you're using these type of blocks, generally you do need to weatherproof them, whether that's a render or some sort of cladding. You will need to do that. So we're just sort of getting ready for the oversight now, leveling the site, backfilling everything, and this is essentially our foundation pretty much here now. So what we do is just level it out, and we'll be bringing in some hardcore and compacting it and so on, and then we'll eventually concrete this floor. So this is not built to building regs because it's not necessary for this building, but it's quite close in the procedures and the methods that we use anyway. So you guys can see now, you can see the outline shape of the building. You can see you've got these two extended arms, if you want to call it, that are coming out, and later on you guys will see why that is there like that. So what we're doing is now we're moving on now with the block work. We're doing what we call is our DPC. That's called a damp proof course, and what that does is it prevents damp from below the foundation traveling or wicking its way up the brickwork into the sort of internal walls. So we're using damp-proof course on the internal walls. You see there's a gap which will fill with insulation, and then we also have an external wall which is separate from the internal wall, and we tie these two walls together using wall ties, so it just gives you sort of a stronger wall, and you're able to fill the wall, the internal gap, with insulation, and that's how you insulate the walls and so on. So what we're using here is we're using concrete blocks on the external wall, which are the more hard-wearing blocks, and then we're using what we call a thermalite block on the interior, which is a lightweight block. It's an aerated block. It has lots of tiny little holes in it, and that allows air to sort of get into those holes, and air itself is used as an insulator. So these blocks have quite a good sort of good thermal properties when it comes to insulating. You can see the insulation we're putting in between the walls here. We also leave a little air gap as well between the external wall and the insulation. And what we do is we tie the insulation with clips tight onto the internal block wall, and that's what we're doing here. So we're building up, we're doing this in block. It moves fairly quickly once you're doing this in block. As you can see here again, you see these little red clips. We use those red clips as retainers, and they basically clip onto those wall ties that I mentioned earlier, and they're used to hold the insulation tight towards the internal wall. So it's important with a style like this build that you have the insulation resting against the internal wall and not the external wall. So we're going to have a window here, sort of like a floor to almost ceiling window here, and we're putting some concrete lintels which are above, and we also have some French doors which we did the same thing, use concrete lintels above. So there's different ways of doing this. Well, this is the way that we're doing it for this particular build. So next what we do is we put on what we call a wall plate. I'm always asked questions about this. Should a wall plate have cement under it? Should it just go straight on the block? Wall plates typically have cement underneath them. We use the cement to level it and just to bed it down. There's no problems with it. There'll be no issues with damp getting into the timber, which people sometimes think. If you have damp getting all the way up to your ceiling through the walls, then you've got bigger problems to worry about. Also, you notice we've got these, what we call, some people call them hurricane straps, and they basically strap the wall plate down to the building, and then the roof will be connected to that wall plate, and that's how you essentially anchor the roof down to the house. We've also got some steel work here, so we have a ridge beam for our roof, and you can see here we've also clamped and bolted some timbers inside the web and on the top of it as well, and that's going to help us to connect our rafters to that steel beam. So we've got a very low pitch on one side, as you guys can see here. Then we build up on top of the steel beam, which is the center ridge, so the other side of the roof will have a higher pitch. So we've got a sort of, this is the design that the house was built, this is how it was built, or designed, should I say. Now we've got sort of two different pitches, sort of offset, and we're just bolting a double rafter at the top, which is going to be our ridge beam now. So we double it up to give it strength, and we bolt it together with some coach bolts. Then you guys can see we've got the other rafters on the other side, and we're just fixing these now so you guys can see a better look here of our rafters being nailed in together on our ridge beam and so on. So you guys can see we're putting some noggins in as well. It's good practice, at least every 2 meters you should put in some noggins to prevent twisting of the rafters. Anything over 2 meters you really should have noggins in there. So now we're just sort of building up the last few courses of brickwork, which we cut in line with the shape of the roof, and we just make sure we fill up all that gap. You can see also underneath the steel we've got a pad stone, which you must have under steels, some sort of pad stone to prevent crushing of the bricks by the load that's going to be pressed down from that steel and the roof above it. So you can see here now we started putting our metal cladding for our roof. So what we did is we put in a breathable roofing membrane first. Then we have some battens which need to be spaced out at a minimum spacing. In this case we have 3 rows of battens, and then we're using some screws to screw this down, special screws to screw the cladding down to those rafters. And then what we do now is we're chopping off the ends of the rafters at the right angles that we need them to be, and these will have our fascia boards attached to them here. So now you guys can see those 2 little sort of wing block walls that are sticking out. It helps to make a sort of little porch stroke canopy area, and we're actually extending the roof over that area to sort of give you some sort of shelter above the door. So that's the plan and the reason why we did that. Now we're just doing the other side of the roof. That's all been covered. So once we clad this side of the roof, we're essentially watertight this building. So you can see the screws that we're using there, sort of self tappers. They also have a rubber seal underneath those as well. And a lot of people ask about this. You might have noticed we screwed those into the sort of internal ridge of those cladding tiles and not the hips, and that is typically how they have to be fitted. And those sealing washers will obviously prevent any water ingress. Then we have the little black caps that we put on top for decorative purposes. So we've got a little bit of foundation that we're also making at the back here, because we've got a little bit of wall where there was an old fence and we're replacing it with a block wall, and we're going to have a gate at the back of the building. So that's why we're doing that. So as I said earlier, we are having a bathroom in here. So we're right now sorting out the waste for the toilet, but also the shower and the sink will also connect into that as well. So our concrete foundation is set at the back now, and what we're using is what we call a wall starter kit. This is a common way of tying new walls to existing walls. So what that allows us to do is we screw this sort of plate to the wall, and then there's these little brackets that hook into it, and then we put those brackets in between the courses of brick and just sandwich it in between the bricks, and that's how you tie the wall together. So we're now back inside now. We've done up our plumbing pipe work. We've also run our electrical pipe in from the house in some pipe work, which you guys might see at the back here. And we've all started putting some insulation in as well. So what we did is we compacted that hardcore. Once we compact that hardcore, now we're bringing in some soft sand. It's very important that we use soft sand here. We don't want anything that's got any sharp bits in it that can pierce the layer of damp proof membrane, which you guys can see us laying down now. So this is basically a barrier for moisture not to flow in to the concrete floor. Then we insulate that floor. We didn't use any DPM on top of the insulation in this case, but it is a good idea often to use it. But some of the installations don't necessarily need it, but it is maybe it's a good idea. In hindsight, I would have used some, but it's not necessary particularly. So if you've got some more DPM, stick another layer on there. So right, so we spent a load of money on our concrete today. As you guys can see, we used the pump again. Typically when you have the pump, we got to pay for concrete and pay for a pump. And then you can see the guys just cleaning the line out, blasting this little foam ball through, and it cleans the line out. And then he's going to leave us there and we're going to do the rest of it. So this concrete is a lot more wet than typical. This is actually a self-leveling concrete. The stones are very small in this particular style of concrete. We've used this from a particular company in the past, and it is a very good concrete. So even though it may look a bit wet, it is very strong. All right, so now we're installing insulation and plasterboard. So you might notice that this plasterboard looks a sort of bluey color. For anybody that's used to plasterboard in the UK, they're typically light gray. We do have a pink fireproofing board, and then we also have this blue stuff. So we're using this blue stuff here for soundproofing. So it's a soundboard. Now This is something that, again, is a little bit different than we'll typically do maybe for building regs. Is wherever we have steels, we typically wrap it with pink board, which is a 30-minute rated fireboard. Now, there's debatable different ways to do it. You can wrap it with double layers of normal plasterboard. Often you can get away with that, or just one layer of pink board. But in this case, we're not particularly concerned about deflection of a steel if there was a fire, because if there's a fire in this small garden house and it's damaged the steel, then the house is already basically been destroyed at this point. So it really doesn't make a lot of sense. If you had it as a steel that was, you know, holding up part of your house, that would be totally different. So what we're implying now is one thing's called tech sound, which is very good soundproofing. It's sort of some rubber membrane that you stick to the plasterboard, which is what we've done here, and this is going to give another layer of absorption of sound. The reason why we're going in so much with the insulation and soundproofing in this building is because there are train tracks at the back of this building, and the client wanted to have an office at the back and have as minimal sound disturbance as possible. So we had to wrap the entire ceiling, the entire walls with this. Bearing in mind this is on the insulation of plasterboard that we've put in, and we're actually going to put another layer of plasterboard on top of this soundproofing, so there'll be 2 layers of plasterboard. Now our wall has been set and dried at the back now, and as you guys can see, we're fitting in a back gate security door, replacing the old wooden gates that used to be there as well, and that we tying that wall with a frame to the house. Something I missed, I'm not sure if we saw in the video, but when we put our first layer of plasterboard, we installed something called a resilient bar, which is some metal horizontal bars that we screwed to the wall, and then we screwed the plasterboard to that. So that gives a separation of the plasterboard from the wall and helps to you know, lessen vibrations in the wall coming from the outside into the building. So that's how we did that, and we can see where we're screwing these screws in. We're going straight through the first layer of plasterboard and we're going back into those resilient bars. So we're not putting any screws into the block wall itself, only into the suspended metal bars. So as you can see, we're doing a second layer of acoustic plasterboard, so really soundproofing this place nice. Now we're working on the small little shower room, and I'm building here a pocket door frame. So the door, obviously space is at a premium, so what we're designing this is to have a door that slides into the wall, so you don't have to worry about opening into a small bathroom or opening out to your office. You can just slide it and tuck it into the wall, and that way you save some space. So the door will be on the right hand side of that frame, and it will slide into the left hand side of the frame, as you guys can see it. And you can see you already got a toilet in here, and this is where the toilet is going to be, and there'll be a shower as you enter on the left hand side. So yeah, just carrying on with the plasterboarding. A lot of plasterboarding. You can see we're also taping up all the joints, because we will be skimming this room. So we're going to start some skimming now, and I've got my apprentice. Actually, it's going to be his first time. He's always wanted to have a go at plastering, so it was just me and him that day, and I was just giving him a little go and trying to show him a few little bits and so on. We've got a whole room to skim, all the walls. I mean, the walls, ceilings are not that high, especially at the lower end. They get higher as you get down up to the ridge in the middle. So he's just having a go, trying to get his technique on applying, which is not easy when you first try it. It takes a little while to get the hang of it. You've got to get the feel of the plaster and how much sort of weight or the angle of your trowel. But once you do get it, it's not very difficult at all. It's just practice makes perfect. So you can see he's going up that wall. And what we do with the multi-finish, how we do this, is called a 2-coat system. So we apply a first coat, we flatten it out as flat as we can, and then we let it go off for a little bit, and then we do a second coat, and then we polish that. So you guys can see now I'm just taking over now to just sort of finish this wall off, because you also have a limited time to work with, so you can't spend too much time on it. otherwise your plaster will start going off on you. So you can see, just sort of taking out the rough lines at first. You get as flat as you can. You're not going to get all the lines out in your first coat, so don't spend too much time on it. If you are, leave it, come back to it when it's the right time to do the second coat. So now I'm doing the ceiling. I've done loads of walls here already. Sometimes we do the ceiling first. That day, as I said, I was doing some lessons with my apprentice, so it was easier for him to just do the walls. So we just sort of just done walls that day, and now I've come in and done the ceilings and so on. There is the areas or the walls where the doors and windows are going to be. I wasn't able to put a plasterboard and do those areas yet because I was waiting for the doors to go in first, and those were on order. So we just had to sort of work around so we could just keep it moving. So we've also got the some spotlights that's going to go in. All the cables are already up there, and we've marked where they are. We can cut them out later with a hole saw and pull our cables through once everything's painted and so on. So our windows and door has finally arrived. So you can see nice tall window here. We're just putting in, these are all black as well, all double glazed and aluminium as well. So we've got some nice French doors here, and we're about to put these in now. So the manufacturer, and it was totally not us, thankfully, actually made a mistake with the measurement, and they made the door too tall. And it wasn't too much tall, I would say maybe an inch. So the only way to get it to work is I had to cut an inch off those blocks and drop the door down slightly, which worked in the end because our flooring is quite thin anyway, the flooring that we're going to use. So the floor was still slightly lower than the door threshold anyway internally. So it worked out quite nice in the end. But it was either that or we'd send it back and wait for maybe about 6 weeks for it to be remanufactured, which really the client didn't want to do. So we found a little way to get around it, and it worked perfectly. So as you guys can see, we're just fitting those in, screwing those in with some concrete screws. Once we fit this in, then we can fit the glass panels. So you can see the door and the windows separated into 3 panels, and we fit those panels in after. And the doors obviously got 3 panels either side as well. So we're fitting those panels in, then we fit the weather seals, rubber seals around as well. And that's the windows completely sealed in. We use a bit of soapy water to get those seals in. It always helps. And just like a plastic spudger. And then we basically tuck those in. And then that's the seals all done in your window. So we're just using a little bit of foam around the windows as well as screwing them in just to give it a nice airtight seal. So we're moving in now. We're inside. You guys can see our nice concrete floor that we had, which came out very smooth, but just not smooth enough for the type of floor that we're going to be using. So we're going to be using an LT or LVT flooring. Anybody knows what that is? It's a very thin sort of laminate floor, and it will show any imperfections on the floor that you have. So if you've got a timber floor in your house, it's advisable to put some sort of plywood down first. Or in this case, if you've got a concrete floor, we're going to use a self-leveling compound just to get, you know, a really, really smooth surface on the floor. Because we're also gluing this down, and the self-leveling isn't as porous as the concrete is, so it's better to sort of glue it down to a self-leveling compound. So we're just using some primer on the floor, which helps the self-level to adhere to the concrete, and also seals all the dust of the concrete and so on. So we've primed it ready for that when it's ready to go. Now we're just putting some angle bead on around the doors and windows. As you can see now, we've got the doors in. We've put the last bit of plasterboard in around them, and now we're just putting the trims in, and we can now plaster those last few areas. We've also got, as I mentioned in the beginning, underfloor heating in here. So there'll be 2 forms of heating. With our underfloor heating, we also have an AC system which also has heating in it as well. So this is an electric underfloor heating. It comes on a mat. You make to make sure that you size it correctly to your room, because you're not able to cut it. It's one sort of filament, as you can see. You can cut the mat, but you can't cut the wires. So cutting the mat allows you to sort of maneuver to a certain degree, but you have to really be strategic and plan your routes so that you don't end up to the end of your room with a roll of it left, because it has to be completely laid out flat. So we've done that. Now we're just burying the thermostat sensor in the ground, which needs to be in between two of the wires, and that will tell the controller what the temperature of the floor is. So that's very important. So we've done that. Now we can self-level this floor. So we're burying the underfloor heating system in the self-leveling. So the whole floor now will basically become a large heater. So when if the system is on, it will heat this self-leveled floor, which obviously will have the LVT flooring glued down to it. And this is how we install this electric floor. So we're not using it right at the back where we've got a cupboard. We did go into the bathroom with it though. So it's in the office and it's in the bathroom, only between the shower and the toilet. So it's only a little small area. The floor is nice and smooth. Walls are pretty much skimmed, just a few little bits to skim. I think what we ended up doing with the bathroom, we had to make it slightly bigger, so we had to extend it. So we got a little bit of plastering repairing to do there. So just carrying on with the plasterboarding in the bathroom. So you guys can see it there. You notice this board is a green board. This is actually a moisture board. This is why we're using this in the bathroom. And we also have some cement board which we're using in the shower area, which is to the left of the green board. So cement board is better for the shower, and we just use the moisture board in there for moisture resistance. All these plasterboards are all going to be tiled anyway, so everything will be covered and protected from moisture. So just getting this plasterboard in here. A lot of angles, as I said, so you've got to get a lot of measurements to get everything nice and tight in there. And knowing where those resilient bars are, that we can screw through into them as well. Then we've got a stud wall that we built as well, which is attached to the door frame. And now we're going to start doing some tiling. So we've got some sort of jade green tiles that are going inside the shower area with a certain pattern the customer wanted. Then we're going to have some large squared white tiles in the rest of the bathroom. So we're just cutting these tiles now. We're actually using these ones on the floor as well. The floor and some parts of the shower. So cutting our tiles, getting them all in around the shower pan. What I'm doing now is I'm just sealing up all the joints of the cement board in the shower area. And then what we're going to be using is a tanking membrane. So this is like a liquid rubber membrane that we use to waterproof the cement boards and go over all those tape joints. And that's just an extra layer of protection. So you can see the color of it's gone sort of blue now. And now we're just tiling. So we've tiled the green parts on the wall, we've done the floor, and now we're doing the white tiles on the walls. And that is pretty much the bathroom tiled. So I'm using these clips here, which are sort of leveling clips. They're good particularly for large tiles like this. They really do help to make sure you don't have lippage and so on with these large tiles. So that's what we're doing here. And you can see the pocket door a little bit better now, where the door's going to be sliding into that sort of little gap here, just to the side of the door frame. So tiling is done. You guys can see the walls. You can see inside the shower here again. We use the pattern, and that's basically what it looks like. So we'll let this set. Once it's set, we can route it. We've also got a shower pan tray down as well, as you guys can see. So we just got a little bit of skimming to do on the ceiling, and then the bathroom will be ready for finishing up. So we're using this hidden or concealed cistern which you guys can see is screwing onto the wall. Then we're going to box it in, and we'll cover it all off, so you won't actually see the controls. You'll just see this toilet bowl, and then you will just see the button to flush this as well. So we're making it in a way that the top lid can come off if you need to access anything. So back to skimming that last bit of wall now, just getting round to skimming that now. So much things to do. Well, as you guys can see, we're going back to skim that last little bit around the doors. The floor's self-leveled and it's all dry. Bathroom's tiled. So once we skim this and let it dry, we're ready to start painting, and then sort of putting some LVT flooring down and starting to wrap this job up. We still got the outside of the building to clad as well, so look out for that. So you can see I'm just doing the bathroom ceiling, and also that little extension of the bathroom that we did made it a little bit bigger because it was a little bit tight in there. So you can see also our spotlights are in, and we've got our skim, and now we're ready to start doing some painting. So it's been a couple of days, plaster's dried enough to paint, and what we're just doing here is just doing an undercoat. Our undercoats we just mix ourselves, we call it a mist coat. So we just used a normal matte emulsion, and we add some water to that. It really varies, really do it by hand. We sort of know the consistency that we want, but anywhere from sort of 20% to 30% maybe in water you can add to it, maybe a little bit more sometimes, and that just allows the first coat to soak a lot of that water into the plaster, and that helps to prevent your paint from peeling off the plaster, to make sure that your second and third coats really adhere to the walls. So it's very important, and we always use this when we're doing fresh bare plaster. So using the multi-tool here, we're just cutting out for where the toilet button's going to be. You can see the cistern here. We've built a little boxing unit, and it sort of works nice because you get a little shelf as well behind the toilet. You can put sort of things on it as well. And we're just screwing all this plasterboard together here. So we also, I didn't mention before, we actually had a cupboard as well. It's going to be a service cupboard. It's going to have the consumer unit for the electrics in there, as well as the water heater as well, and just shelving for general storage in that area. So still painting now, and while the painting is going on, we're starting to batten the external walls. You can see we're putting some soffits in and some fascia boards. We'll have some guttering on there as well. Once we batten these walls, similar to what we did on the roof, we're going to install the same black cladding to the sides of the building. So we're going to do this side of the building, we'll do the front, we'll do the left hand side, and the back, which is facing the railway tracks, we're just going to render because it was a cheaper method and saves the client some money. Because at the back there, they're just going to spray graffiti over it anyway. So we've just given them a blank canvas for them to do that, instead of spending lots of money on metal panels and then they just spray all over it anyway. So you can see we built a sort of frame, timber frame around that block work, because there's some angles in that area that the cladding has to sort of fit to. So we had to create those angles using the timber battens. So it sort of points in towards the door, if that makes sense. So we're using some sort of metal sheet in here. I believe it might be galvanized, and then the plan is we're going to spray paint these panels copper, so the building will sort of be black with these copper accents around the entrance of it as well. So we're just doing the same thing with those screws and screwing them into our battens, and we've got to put some corner trims as well to finish off where these angles and these corners are, so and cover all the sharp edges. So this is what we're doing here now. So we've also put that same metal in on the ceiling. You can see we're just turning over the edges. So we've got a ceiling in metal and the two sides. Now we're starting to use all our cappings and so on, and the edging to cover up all these sort of rough edges and so on. And again, we're using the same screws with the caps, and we're just using them to screw them in. So this is what we're looking at so far. You guys can see it's starting to take shape. We've still got a bit more cladding to do on the left hand side. We're gonna have to access from the neighbors, which have allowed us to do that. So we got to take the fences off, fence panels off. We've got a little trims to put on the edges, as I said, and we've got a little bit more cladding on top of the roof, which you guys will see a bit later. We've got a little bit of cladding to put up here as well, the black cladding, and a little bit at the bottom. Well, this is what it's looking like, and a little bit on top of that roof there as well. Gonna have to do that, and then that will be the cladding done. So you guys can see all these interesting angles, sort of leaning, different angles, and so on. So this is the paint that we used. This is a Rust-Oleum paint, and it's a metallic. The color that we used was an aged copper, and I'm just doing a little test piece just to see what it looks like. So obviously it's metallic, it has a very nice shine to it, especially in the sun. So this is what we're going to use. So I'll probably give it about 2 to 3 coats of that. So we've got to obviously protect the windows and the black areas that we don't want paint to go on. And it was very windy, so we're just going to stop the wind blowing the paint everywhere. So I had to kind of create a little spray booth that I could go into and spray it. So I'm just sort of cleaning everything down with acetone before I do that. And you guys can see how windy it was that day. So I had to tape it all shut. One day I had to tape me inside while I could basically sort of paint it. So start painting it 1 coat at a time. Obviously it looks quite streaky when you do it, but as you build up your coats, you let it dry, and you build up your coats, then the streaks will disappear. And just sort of take your time, and you do get a nice finish with this paint. So I think it came out quite nice in the end. So yes, as you can see, I've done 3 coats of it, and just touching up some of the edges here. And this is essentially what it's looking like right now with that copper. It really does shine nice in the sun. So while we were doing this, the client asked us if we could do some work on the garden for them. All they wanted was just some astroturf, some people call it, or fake grass. So what we had to do is we had to dig it down and replace that soil with hardcore, similar to like what we used when we did the concrete foundation. And then again, we compact it down with a machine, same compactor, compact it down nice and tight. And then we're also going to use some sand as well, like what we did in the internals. So here's our vortex pump. So what we're doing with the pump now is we're using this to pump the waste from the back garden to the manhole, which is right in front of the building. So when they had the refurbishment of the main house, they had the builders run this black pipe that you can see on the left. They actually ran this 75 mil pipe all the way down to the back, so in anticipation for the garden house in the future. So all we need to do is connect the output of our pump into that black pipe. So you can see that brown pipe is the one coming from our toilet, and that's going to go down into that pump or into that manhole. It's sort of like a manhole with a pump built into it. And what happens is when you run the water, whether it's the tap or the toilets or the shower, that water will now go down into the pump. So as you guys can see, it's going in there, it's filling up. Now inside the bottom of here we have a float, and what happens is when that float rises to a certain level, and we're just pouring extra water in just to speed up the process, you guys can see now it's starting to go down. So the pump is now running and it's sucking everything out. The pump is quite an amazing product. This one is very quiet, very powerful, and it sucks everything via a vortex pump. So our plumbing is done now, and now we're going back onto the grass. So we've compacted our hardcore. Now we're compacting some soft sand on it as well, and that's what we're going to be using to install our grass. So we've put in a weed membrane down as well. There's different ways of doing this and different products, but this is how we've done it here, and we are now putting the grass on it. Grass gets nailed down with these special nails, about 4-inch nails. It gets nailed down and they get buried underneath the fibers of the grass, so you never see them or you won't feel them. And we nail them out a certain amount of spaces. So what we do is we use a little bit of dry sand, fine sand, and we sort of brush back the grass to lift the hairs up a bit, because when it comes new it's sort of flat down, so you sort of back brush it and then it sort of brings out the grass a bit, so you guys can see what it's looking like now. Yeah, that's it. So now back to the manhole. We put the manhole back, and also we've just filled that little back alley with gravel up to that height of the manhole. So that is pretty much, it's a serviceable manhole. You can take the lid off and you can access the pump inside. So we're back inside now. The place is pretty much painted. And now to install the shower door. So we've got a pivoting shower door which is going to go in the shower. Just going to build that down, and that just fits in between the walls nicely, and that's the entrance to your shower. Now we're putting on the pocket door so you guys can see how it slides in, and that's pretty much it. So all we're going to do is add some trim that comes with it, and then add some architraves as well just to finish it off. So we're just adding some architraves. Everything is going to be painted in white anyway, so we're just using some pre-primed architraves. Just gluing those on, and that's it. So outside now we've also put some lights in as well. You guys can see little downlighters, external ones. We've got some on the alleyway here as well, so you can go around the back if you need to at night. And this is what the building's looking like in the night time. So now we're back onto the floor. So we're using this sort of parquet style LVT flooring. It's individual pieces, so a bit of longer job than a sheet of lino, but it's a beautiful floor. So we put the adhesive down, let it go off a little bit tacky, and then you start sticking them down. So this is the pattern that we're using. This is called a herringbone pattern. You can cut these with a knife or scissors, quite easy to cut. And this is what we're using here now. So just spreading that glue down. Because we self-leveled the floor and got the floor perfectly smooth, it's just a lot easier to install this, and it just gives you a nice better finish as well. So it does stick quite quickly. If you allow it to get tacky, when you stick it down, it pretty much sticks instantly, so you can walk on it quite quickly without fear of any of the pieces moving. So we're nearly there now. Once all this is done, then we just add some skirting boards on top, and that would sort of finish off the flooring areas. This is what it looks like now. So it does look like wood, but obviously it's a PVC essentially, but it's extremely waterproof, so it's very good product for water. You can use it in bathrooms and kitchens as well. So it's just very easy to clean. So we do have a feature wall. You might have noticed that we didn't paint this wall. We're having a feature wall in this building, and this feature wall will have some sort of brick cladding. So these tiles are actually the same size as your standard brick, and they have a textured finish that looks like brick as well. So what we're using is we're basically tiling the wall with these. So you can see what I'm using here. This is what my spacers are. They're 10mm spacers. I'm just using it on a strip. It's just easier than doing one individual pile at a time. And I'm just laying these out as your typical brick pattern on a wall, so that it will look like it was an actual wall. And this is what it looks like now. And the plan is, what we'll be doing is we'll be using a normal cement to point these tiles, and this will really make it look like a real wall, because the grouting will be actual cement, just like you would have in a brick wall. So you guys can see I'm mixing some cement, literally mixing some cement in a bucket, and I'm filling it here in the gun here, and I'm using this gun to apply, which is so much easier than trying to use your traditional method of pointing. So I make the cement quite runny so it's easy to get out. Well, by the time you push it out, it sort of starts getting firm straight away. So it's not messy, as you guys can see. It's quite tidy. I do all the vertical joints first, and then we do all the horizontal ones. You guys can see I'm just pushing it in. This is standard cement that you would use to lay bricks. And then once this is all done, we'll let it go off for a bit, maybe about half an hour or so, and then we can start using our pointer to just make everything quite neat, which is what we'll do after. This is what it's looking like when it's just applied. As I said, let it dry for a bit. We scrape off all the extra pieces, and now we're going to start putting the pointer in it and just smoothing out all these lines. Then I just use a soft brush and brush off any little pieces that are sort of hanging off anywhere. And this is what it's looking like. So obviously there's a little bit of staining here and there on these tiles. What we do is we let these dry, and then we're just going to use a tile cleaner, sort of heavy duty tile cleaner, and that will help us to clean off any of the little residue that's on the bricks quite easily. If you really struggled with getting it off, you can use some acid brick cleaners as well. Add a little bit of water to it and use that to clean them. So we're still painting. So we're painting the cupboard doors now for the service room. To see where those cables are here, we're going to have the underheating thermostats here. That's how you'll control the underfloor heating. So you put in our skirting boards, and you can see skirting boards have been painted. Shower's just been tested now, and you guys can maybe see the steam. So we've got a nice hot shower in here, and that's all working nicely. So just showing you a little test area of cleaning those tiles. So we're just going to let that dry properly, maybe for a day or so, and then we will use a cleaner and clean off all the rest of the residue on those tiles. So this is the final bit of cleaning, and let's get to the end of this job.
I am here to oversee the installation of our split AC unit. We've got an engineer, should be here anytime soon to install it for us. So we're down here to get that installed, and then we are done on this job. So I just want to show you guys what the back of the house is looking like. Alright guys, so look, we are back here again, and as you can see, we've got some more graffiti, very colorful ones this time. So the boys have been back, and maybe girls, and they have been at the house. So this is the latest design. So we are basically here today to get the AC units fitted and completed. So our AC guys are here, as you can see. They are going to install this for us. The unit's going to go on the wall down here, and obviously you guys have seen the other unit inside here. One last thing we have to do here is to install the vent pipe for the extract of the shower. So we're just cutting through here. We're going to push that through and put a vent on the back here. Alright, so our AC unit is connected in, as you can see. We're outside, just got the power to put in, but the pipes are out through the other side. Alright guys, our vent is on. It's working, you can probably hear it. Gotta trim that down and get a little bit to get it to fit in the space. But yeah, it's working now. Might be able to hear it blowing in the fan, might not. Just masticed around it. And we're done, pretty much done up here now. The AC guys have done a really good job of hiding the pipes as much as possible. It's all run at the back here. You can see it dropping out in the corner here, and then drops down, and the unit's down there. Guys, so we are finished. It's been a long day. It is 5:30. The AC guys have only just finished. We really thought this would have been a couple of hours, maybe finished by lunch. They've been here since about 9:30, finished now. They've done a great job, so I'm really happy. We just tested everything, everything's been commissioned. So me and Namdi have been here today, and we've just been finding things to do, going over little bits, siliconing little bits, going around the building, making sure any little places have got black sealant and stuff like that. So really tidied up the house. I'm really happy with it. And I want to show you guys the final product.
Okay guys, so this is the finished product. This is the house that we built. I just want to show you guys a couple of bits. So yeah, it's pretty much finished. A little bit dirty, obviously it's black, very hard to keep clean. But here's the AC unit that the guys have put in today. So you see it's got an isolator here. This is Mitsubishi industrial, and it's really quiet. I didn't even know it was on earlier on, but you can see there's the pipe works running up here. It's all in black, covered in black. It's really quite hidden. So yeah, it's looking quite good. I don't know if you guys did see, but we've got some lights in here now. So we've got lights here and here. We've also got 2 lights down here as well, down along here as well, as you can see. So that's that. So back door down there, finished off around the windows and all this stuff. It's all done. Here again, around the windows, or around the door, should I say. It's all been done, all sealed. Everywhere's been sealed, as you can see. That's pretty much it. So in here we have the room. It's all finished. Last thing I done in today was just silicone around the bottom of the floors, just went all the way around. That's all that done. As you guys can see, here is our AC unit on the wall. I have a remote, so I'll turn it on. You can see it coming on here. So this gives us heating and cooling. We tried it all around already. It cools down the room really nice, heats up the room really quick. So we've got that. Obviously we've got underfloor heating system in here as well. Let's turn this off. We have been around in the bathroom as well. Oh, we've put handles on the cupboard there. We've also put in these pocket door handles, as you can see, bathroom lock on here as well, that lock into here. So how the mechanism works on these is basically when you turn it like this little hook comes out, hooks in here, and that's how you close the pocket door, okay? Or that's how you lock it, like this. So that's that. The shower is completely done and all cleaned up. Shower's here. We've got our extra fan, which I showed you guys on the outside. This is where it is there, so that goes out, vents outside. Here's the toilet, obviously, all done. We've got the toilet buttons on here now, which we did the last time. Toilet roll holder and all that. We've actually got a mirror here as well, as you guys can see. Our spotlights. That's that. That is basically it. As you can see, looking really good. Really happy with it. Show you guys around here. Remember our feature wall here. Our cardine floor, which is looking really good. And yeah, that's it. Job done. That's it, guys. So we are off. You will not see us here on this job anymore. We are finished. So yeah, full speed ahead onto the other ones. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of the final outcome. And please like and subscribe. And we'll see you guys on the next video. Take care.